Okay, it's 6:30. At this time, I'd like to call the Administrative Services Committee meeting for Monday, July 20th to order. Please call the roll.
Councilor Martinez?
Here.
Councilor McCurdy?
Here.
Councilor Hill?
Here.
Councilor Plunkett?
Here.
Councilor Burris?
I'd like a motion to approve the minutes of the July 6th, 2020 committee meeting. Councilor Burge, Councilor Hill. Please call the roll.
Councilor Cordino?
Yes.
Councilor McCurdy?
Yes.
Councilor Hill?
Yes.
Councilor Plunkett?
Yes.
Councilor Burridge?
Yes.
Is there any old business to attend to in this committee? Seeing none, moving right along to new business. Item number 1, Mayor William J. Barlow Jr. requests City Chamberlain Deborah Code be authorized to transfer $50,000 in funds in accordance to local law number 4 of 2019 relating to the Blight Reduction Loan Fund through the Zombie LISC program. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. So this is for the Blight Reduction Loan Fund. This is for the second round. The first round we just completed this spring, or last spring. We did approximately 6 properties with the first round, and just to give some context, the initial $150,000 we received in 2016 from a state grant, and that was divided up by the state into 2 different pools of funds. The first $75,000 we just spent, the last of that. That funding went to hire 2 interns that in the summer of 2018 took an inventory on every city street, every city property, registering vacant property, and grading each individual home, particularly rental properties, and grading individual or collective neighborhoods. And then we used it to purchase Municity and update our software to track rental permits, building permits, and so on. It paid for some administrative service costs in the code enforcement office, and then it was the initial pool of funding for the first round of rehabs that we just got done in the spring. So the state was satisfied with how we spent that initial $75,000, so they just released the second pool of funds, the second $75,000. 25 of that is going to go again to administrative costs. It's going to go to one person this summer to take inventory and update that inventory again. And then we're going to take 50 of that 75 to put into this fund to do more rehabs. And then the agenda item tonight is to match that with local funds. So our 50 grand will make it so we have $100,000 to do rehabs just like we did. We had 40 total the first round, so now we'll be able to do double what we did. We estimate it'll be able to help with 12 to 15 properties for this round. Just so people are aware, the way this program works, again, it's based on legislation we passed in early 2018. The code enforcement will go around and identify vacant properties or properties that are stuck in the foreclosure process between the owner and the bank. And vacant properties and foreclosed homes are often the properties in neighborhoods that sit and fall into disrepair over the course of 2, 3, 5 years and have frequent code violations, rodents, the buildings falling down, creating problems in the neighborhood. The law that we passed allows for the city to build that code case, and then if the code violations go without response for an extended period of time, the code enforcement office then sends what we call kind of the final notice and says that you have 2 weeks to take care of all of our issues, otherwise we will be entering the property or coming on the premises with our property, on your property, and make the repairs, and we will take that bill and put it on your taxes. So, and it's that bill, the taxes, and the interest that we tack on that replenishes the fund so that we can continue doing more properties. The reason we're putting more local funds in this time is because obviously the properties that we just finished earlier this spring, the bill just went on their tax bill, so they haven't paid it along with the interest to replenish the fund. So we're putting in more local funds, make it a larger program with more capability, and hopefully it gives it a long lifespan, and once we get it off the ground with that recurring interest, it'll take on a life of its own.
All right, very good, thank you. Is Are there any questions or concerns from the council on this one for the mayor? Seeing none, I just want to clarify, the source of the $50,000 is,
Well, what we're doing is a budget amendment to the 2020 budget.
all right, thank you. Any other issues, concerns? Seeing none, can I have a motion, please? Councillor Hill, Councillor Plunkett. Please call the roll.
Councillor Cordino.
Yes.
Councillor McBrearty. Yes. Councillor Hill.
Yes.
Councillor Plunkett.
Yes.
Councillor Burridge.
Yes.
Item number 2. The city clerk's office has received an application from Philip Gordon and Sons Incorporated, located at 89 East 12th Street, for a renewal of their junk license. This is a standard every year occurrence. They just need to renew their license. Any concerns or questions on the council? Seeing none, can I have a motion, please? Councillor Burridge, Councillor McBrearty. Please call the roll.
Councillor Cordino.
Yes.
Councillor McBrearty. Yes. Councillor Hill.
Yes.
Councillor Plunkett.
Yes.
Councillor Burridge.
Yes.
You'll have to excuse me, the first one, who is going to be doing that resolution?
The resolution for the first item, Mayor?
Yes. Okay. I'm sorry, I don't have a paper copy, so I can't see what has a resolution or not.
Okay. Well, we'll try to keep that in mind going forward.
Thanks.
Item number 3, Mayor William J. Barlow Jr. requests discussion regarding offering a retirement incentive to certain city employees. Mr. Mayor?
All right, so I'm about to sit down and do the city budget. That process begins really in the next, department heads turned in their budgets individually, and now we'll put all the budgets together, take a look at an initial look at the budget. So we're about to do that. But with everything going on, the COVID making the economy so unstable, we've had a little over $100,000 in unexpected expenses related to COVID alone this year. We think it's a good opportunity to take a look at what we can do as a city. You know, the first 5 years, I'd say we've done taken some really drastic measures to rein in city finances and stay within budget and pass responsible budgets while providing city departments the resources they need to move the city forward. So we're walking that balance. I think the city budget this year presents an opportunity, again, with everything going on right now, to take a look at what we can do to ease the challenges we'll face as we enter budget season. In the city budget this year, we have about $500,000 in raises, contractual raises, so we're already behind going into budget season that much. So it's just a lot of other counties are already looking at this, Onondaga, Oneida, Ulster, to name a few. So I think it's a good opportunity for us to take a look at this incentive and make an offer to some employees who are a bit later in their career to see if they want to make an exit and earn some benefits that otherwise at this point in time they wouldn't be entitled to. And specifically what I'm talking about is the health insurance. So a lot of our contracts, management, for example, requires 30 years of service for 100% health. Other contracts like SEIU and AFSCME, for example, require 35 years. So what we're putting forward is an incentive to some employees if they have 15 years of service with the city and they are 53, at least 53 years old. They can take the city up on the offer. They can retire early by October 31st, 2020, and be given their full health regardless of the time they have served. So if you're 55 years old and have 22 years with the city, you can now retire by Halloween and get that 100% health that otherwise you would have had to work 8 more years to get. What this does is saves the city some money, particularly up front. The adjustment in salary, there are some assumptions you'd have to make if you wanted to project savings, but there's a salary difference. Senior employees who are entitled to raises over the many years of service. If you bring in a new position at base, you save some money there. Also retirement contributions. A lot of the employees we would be talking about who this incentive would apply to are Tier 4. Now new hires are Tier 6, so retirement contributions would be substantially less A retirement contribution rate for Tier 4 is 15.8%, for example. Tier 6 is 9.3%, so that's significant. And it would give us the opportunity to, once these employees retire, take a look at each individual position and determine if we want to fill that. And again, if we did, they'd come in at a base rate, a base salary most of the time. There would be a few situations where you would probably promote from within, but we'd be given the opportunity to address that when it comes up. So we project six-figure savings the first year with the most conservative guess. Just using those calculations for the 2021 budget. It's impossible to project the amount of savings now because we just issued this when it came out on the agenda Friday afternoon. We're giving employees until August 31st to notify the city if they want to take us up on it. And then again, they'd have to retire by October 31st. The August 31st deadline's important. What I'll do is I'll implement the savings in the budget as I still have the budget, but as you know, typically I turn the budget over to the council mid to late August. The plan is once that August 31st deadline comes, then we will see everybody who's going to take advantage of it, and that'll give the council an opportunity to implement some savings too, based on how many people we think take us up on it. You can bet that anybody who notifies us ahead of time before I turn the budget over, I'm going to put those numbers in before I give it to you. So I wouldn't let you get a leg up on me there. So, but I think it's a responsible thing to do. I think it's a very proactive thing to do. There certainly will be a net savings. I know some people will question, well, your health premiums, your health care cost is going to go up. That's more of a long-term, down the road cost that certainly will come up a bit, but I think the savings, particularly on the front end, as we go into the 2021 budget in the next couple of years, we'll realize six-figure savings easily, probably closer to $200,000 to $300,000, particularly in 2021.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the council on this proposal? Anybody else? Yes.
How does the retirement go from 30 years down to 15 years? It seems that it's an incentive. It's
Excuse me, let me stop you there. Can you come up to the microphone and state your name and your residence and then proceed with your question?
Timothy. How does it go from 30 years down to 15? It seems it's a bit connected with certain people in the city. 30 years retirement, it's a standard. Now it drops down to 15 years. Interesting.
Is there a question? Sounded like more of a statement.
How does it drop from 30 to 15?
Yeah, I mean, that's the incentive we're offering. So 30 years, some bargaining units are 35 years, and 15 years, people have to be vested in the city. It's not like they were a temporary employee for 5 years or 7 years. They spent 15 years of their life and had already earned a level of health insurance or where they would have to contribute some themselves because it goes up every 5 years, some contracts every 10 years. So the 30-year mark down to 15's reasonable. Again, the employees have been here for quite a while, already earned a lot of it on their own. This incentive helps, allows them to retire earlier than they would and saves the city money. So it's certainly mutually beneficial.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Any other concerns? Yes.
I could be wrong. I could be. Retirement equals a job opening, which means that somebody will have to replace that person. In the retirement, that person leaves, the salaries will be paid for that person. You're going to have to hire a new person to take place of that old person that retired. Don't see the benefit in cost saving.
All right, thank you for that comment. Anybody else have any comments? Seeing none, can I have a motion? Councillor Hill, Councillor McBrearty. Please call the roll.
Councillor Cordino?
Yes.
Councillor McBrearty? Yes. Councillor Hill?
Yes.
Councillor Plunkett?
Yes.
Councillor Burridge?
Yes. Item number 4. Nancy C. Stereo, Personnel Director, requests discussion regarding establishing a standard workday for certain positions. Ms. Stereo?
Good evening. This is our semi-annual. We do this every 2 years. Every time there's a new term of office, we have to update with the New York State retirement system any new positions. We've added a couple. So because there's no standard workday listed in the individual contracts they are in, we have to have the council establish a standard workday. There's 2 positions. One of them is the Police Chief Director of Homeland Security, and the other is the Zoning Coordinator. So it's just a housekeeping thing that we have to do for the retirement system.
All right, thank you for explaining that. Any questions for Ms. Stereo from the council? Public? Seeing none, can I have a motion, please? Councillor Plunkett, Councillor Burridge. Please call the roll.
Counselor Cordino?
Yes.
Counselor McBrearty?
Yes.
Counselor Hill?
Yes.
Counselor Plunkett?
Yes.
Counselor Burridge?
Yes.
All right, I see there's another item, item number 5 for the Personnel Director. Nancy C. Stereo, Personnel Director, requests that the City of Oswego establishes the standard work days for appointed and elected officials and will report the days to the New York State and local employees' retirement system based on the record of activities maintained and submitted by these officials to the clerk of this body. Stereo?
Thank you. Again, this is every time there's a new term of office, there's an election and you have a new term starting for people within a certain, I believe it's 180 days of taking office. You have to complete 3 months of logs, turn those in, we turn them into numbers, and then the body of the legislature has to approve those numbers based on the logs you submitted. And that's all we're doing here. There's a new term for the mayor, and there's also new terms for all the aldermen. Councilors, sorry. I'm showing my age. What can I tell you? But that's all we're doing tonight, is just getting the resolutions together and in place so that we can do the reporting that's required by the state retirement system.
All right, thank you. Any questions for our Personnel Director from the council? Public? Seeing none, can I have a motion, please? Councillor Hill, Councillor McBrearty.
Counselor Cordino?
Yes.
Counselor McBrearty?
Yes.
Counselor Hill?
Yes.
Counselor Plunkett?
Yes.
Counselor Burridge?
Yes.
Item number 6. The City Engineering Department has received an application submitted by Upstate Electrical Inspection Agency requesting to be added to the City of Oswego's list of approved agencies for electrical inspections.
Long time no see.
Yes, I didn't even see you walk in.
Well, you know.
Our city engineer.
Good evening, councilors. City Code Section 108-4 and 12615 require that the City Council and the Mayor approve and appoint electrical inspectors in the City of Oswego. So Aaron Bellows has worked for Middle Development Inspection, which is one of our 3 approved electrical inspectors, and he has expressed interest and is anticipating doing his own business with some of his family members. And so he supplied his resume, reached out to our office asking to get added, and so in reviewing his resume, he appears to be qualified, and so I offered to bring it forward and seek the council's approval for that.
All right, very good. Any concerns from the council on this one? Basically, what you're trying to do here is you're adding another company that would be servicing the community, the residents of the community, so they'll have other choices, another choice on electrical inspections.
Yep. It increases competition, which is always good for the consumer and gives more options, and we think that's a good thing for our city.
Definitely, yeah. And the person that is applying, from what I understand and talking to some other people in your department, that they have previous history. They've worked in the city.
Yes, they have. So in the current company they're in, they've done inspections in the city for that company. So they're familiar and appear to have a good reputation amongst our code officials and things of that nature.
And they're not located in Minnesota or somewhere.
Right. No, they're local.
Local. Very good. All right. Anybody else? Seeing none, can I have a motion, please? Councillor Burridge, Councillor Plunkett.
Counselor Cordino?
Yes.
Counselor McBrearty?
Yes.
Counselor Hill?
Yes.
Counselor Plunkett?
Yes.
Counselor Burridge?
Yes.
Item number 7. The City Engineering Department requests approval of change order number 6 for the general contract with Marcellus Construction Incorporated for the combined sewer separation, third 25% project in the amount of $0 for extra work to be performed for unforeseen conditions or requests by the city. Mr. Hinderlitter?
So, to be expeditious with our time, I won't go through every single extra work order is. You've seen these come through in previous meetings. These are really ways that we're extending our DPW's effectiveness as they encounter things as they're uncovering, and you find, well, this water valve doesn't work, and so because of that, we have to shut down an extra 6 blocks. So this work is continuing that idea that if we're there, the hole's open, that oftentimes we'll provide the parts and then have our contractor install them for us. And so there is a savings on our side that here's the part, and so it makes sense to minimize those. So most of these changes that you see are of that nature. There are other changes, and this goes for the other resolutions to follow. There are some where, for example, on West 2nd, if you notice the repair area, how wide that is, as they were excavating, the road kept coming in the trench. It got wider and wider and wider. And so it became necessary to stabilize that in a better way than just backfilling. And so we went ahead and added some binder and had a paving company come in and button that up so it was solid. And so that's a change order that will be wrapped in here. That's the majority of it, is things of that nature.
All right. And of course, you've already warned us ahead of time that because this work is being done in some of the oldest parts of the city, that there were going to be issues and surprises once they open the road.
We have found a number of them, and and we are tracking for the project. Just as an update to the councilors, we are tracking ahead of schedule. We're about 5 weeks ahead of schedule. We have, as the project unfolded, we found some of infrastructure that was questionable is actually in better condition. Mm-hmm. So when you see our total expenditure in that work allowance, we're actually low in it, what we were expecting to be at this point. We're actually ahead of the game so far, which is good. Maybe I'm cursing us by mentioning this, but hopefully not.
In the interest of transparency on each of these, I would like to make sure that the public is aware of what the amount is. I know it doesn't change the bottom line of the contract, but do you have that figure? If not, I have it.
I think the total dollar amount for the first one is $22,259.37.
Okay, very good. Any other questions or concerns for our city engineer? Anybody else? Seeing none, can I have a motion, please? Councilor McBurney, Councilor Hill. Yes.
Councilor McBurney? Yes. Councilor Hill?
Yes.
Councilor Plunkett?
Yes.
Councilor Burridge?
Yes.
Item number 8, the City Engineering Department requests approval of change order number 7 for the general contract with Marcellus Construction Company Incorporated for the combined sewer separation third 25% project in the amount of $0 for extra work to be performed for unforeseen conditions or requests by the city. City.
Yeah, ditto.
Ditto.
And the total of this one is $20,804.37. This one does include a small payment that we had to direct the work to stop in a moment, and because the work on 104 is a little more involved, you notice the larger work zone, it's a little higher stake. There is a change order in there for a delay, essentially what we call a delay claim, that the contractor was on site, they had their mobilization, they had their work zone up, and then we told them to stop working, and it's so there is, you'll see there's a $13.75 for transparency to show that if you wondered what that was, we had a water issue, and by time it was about a 2.5-hour stop by the time we got the people together who could make the decision of what to do.
All right, thanks for explaining that. Any concerns, questions, comments from the council? From the public? Seeing none, can I have a motion, please? Councilor Plunkett, Councilor Burridge.
Councilor Corino?
Yes.
Councilor McBurney? Yes. Councilor Hill?
Yes.
Councilor Plunkett?
Yes.
Councilor Burridge?
Yes.
All right, one more time. Number 9, the City Engineering Department requests approval of change order number 8 for the general contract with Marcellus Construction Company Incorporated for the combined sewer separation third 25% project in the amount of $0 for extra work to be performed for unforeseen conditions or requests by the city.
So this one is the milling that occurred, the extra pavement that occurred on 2nd and Cayuga. This one was specific and broken out for $30,165.48. This was to put 6 inches of binder in there, so it was to rebuild the entire roadway in that section. So it is, it feels high, but we essentially built the base of 2 streets by doing this, and it's the right thing to do for those streets.
All right, very good. Any comments from the council? From the public? Seeing none, can I have a motion, please? Councilor Hill, Councilor McBurney.
Counselor Cordino?
Yes.
Counselor McBurney? Yes. Counselor Hill?
Yes.
Counselor Plunkett?
Yes.
Counselor Burridge?
Yes. Item number 10, Chief Philip Cady, Police Chief, is requesting a discussion regarding the purchase of 14-month-old Belgian Malamar Police, thank you, K-9, and associated training costs. Chief?
Good evening. Nice to see everybody in person. It's been a while. So as one of the mayor's initiatives, we discussed this early on, and I think you brought it up in your State of the City address, looking to add to our city K-9 unit, the police department K-9 unit, by adding what's commonly referred to as a bomb dog. We mainly use this dog for checking large areas where we have outdoor events like Harbor Fest, Dirt Week, where we're relying upon outside agencies to assist us now. This dog will also be trained in search and rescue techniques, and will be used as a community resource when we go to schools and stuff like that to have outreach with our youth. It'll also be able to be used for school searches should the school district request that. The cost, it's kind of been an issue. We normally use the State Police K-9 Academy. They are in flux right now, obviously, with the state budget. I can't get a straight answer as to whether or not they're going to have an academy. We were able to find a New York State certified academy, a DCGS academy with the Monroe County Sheriff's Department. So in lieu of having an officer and the dog travel back and forth on overtime, 3.5 to 4 hours plus a day, it's cheaper for us to house him at a hotel that is dog friendly, and then we're also going to incur meals. So there's some costs that we didn't think we were going to incur that we're now going to. So that's why I brought this resolution before you tonight. Anybody have any questions? Or
Can you give us the approximate amount we're talking about? I mean, you said it was going to be additional cost.
Sure. So
Again,
the dog itself is $6,500. Meals and lodging for the entirety of the academy is $5,031. And then there'll be just overtime is dependent upon class overruns. If they have to be there earlier on a Monday or stay later on a Friday. So I can't give you those amounts specifically, but it'll vary.
All right, thanks. Any other questions for the chief from the council on this? Public?
I think it's a fantastic idea, and probably one of the smartest things the city's going to do in the past couple of years is getting this puppy.
Thank you. I see another question in the corner.
Chief, this is Belgian Malinois?
Malinois.
Belinois?
Yep.
Belgian?
Yes.
What is especially on this dog? Is it a special type of breed that it does special things?
It's commonly used for police dogs. They're easily trained, obedient.
Okay. Drugs and things like that?
Well, not this particular dog. This will be a bomb dog, so they'll be
Oh, a bomb dog?
smelling for
I hope never.
explosives, gun shells, that type of stuff.
So if you can clarify, we do have another dog that does that.
Yes, we do have a drug dog
Right.
who is he's 8 years old, so we'll probably be looking to replace him in a year or two.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Any other comments or concerns? Seeing none, can I have a motion, please? Councilor Hill, Councilor Plunkett.
Counselor Cordino?
Yes.
Counselor McBurney? Yes. Counselor Hill?
Yes.
Counselor Plunkett?
Yes.
Counselor Burridge?
Yes. All right, I believe that's the last item for this committee. Is there any other concerns or issues councilors have on this? Seeing none, can I have a motion to adjourn? Counselor McBurney, Counselor Burridge.
Counselor Cordino?
Yes.
Counselor McBurney?
Yes.
Counselor Hill?
Yes.
Counselor Plunkett?
Yes.
Counselor Burridge?
Yes. At this time, I'd like to call the Physical Services Committee meeting for July 20th, 2020 to order. Please call the roll.
Counselor Hill?
Here.
Counselor Burridge?
Here.
Counselor Walker?
Here.
Counselor Gozick?
Here.
Is there any old business to come before this committee? Seeing none, we'll move on to an approval for the minutes of our July 6, 2020 meeting. Could I have a motion, please? Counselor Walker, Counselor Gozick.
Counselor Hill?
Yes.
Counselor Burridge?
Yes.
Counselor Walker?
Yes.
Counselor Gozick?
Yes.
Under new business, communication, item number 1, the Zoning and Planning Office has received a request to use public space submitted by Eric Teresi, contract purchaser of a single-family dwelling located at 40 Lake Street in the First Ward for previously approved replacement and extension of existing porch fronting Lake Street. Mr. McGann, would you like to speak to this?
Sure. Good evening. Mr. Teresi is the contract purchaser. He'll be closing later this week on this property. There is currently a use of public space in place for the current owner. Obviously, it's not transferable, so Mr. Teresi is seeking his own use of public space and also looking to remove the roof on the porch eventually and put a second-story deck on. Anybody that's familiar with 40 Lake Street, it's got a perfect view of the harbor out over the lake, and Mr. Teresi is looking to take advantage of that, get the use of public space and the hold harmless in his name.
Excellent. Councilman McBurney, do you have anything to add?
No, I support it. I think it'll look really good, and it definitely will add value.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. McGann?
That one.
Oh, Council.
Through the chair. Mr. McGann, I just had a question. This might be a legal question for the city attorney, but let me just throw it out there and we'll see which one of you want to answer this. I see in the original resolution dated 2000 or 1992, it did have the words non-transferable. So in the new resolution that you're proposing, it says it is transferable. So are we here today because of that word non-transferable in the original resolution from 1992? Is that why we're here discussing this, basically? So...
yeah, I think so. There were, my experience, there were several things that either the council or various zoning board, planning board did back then that we don't do now. For instance, special permits were reviewed every 1 or 2 years, and I think there was some point in our history where variances were or special permits were non-transferable. They only stayed with the property owner at the time. So it's an evolved process, and I do think that that's probably part of this. I mean, clearly that resolution from '92 says it's non-transferable. We generally, once it's done and that work is done, hard to take it back, right? So that's, at least from my perspective, that would be the reason why.
Okay. Well, thank you for clarifying that. Thank you, Chairman.
Great. Any other questions or concerns from the council? Could I have a motion, please? Councilor Burridge, Councilor Walker.
Counselor Hill?
Yes.
Counselor Burridge?
Yes.
Counselor Walker?
Yes.
Counselor Gozick?
Yes.
Item number 2, the Zoning and Planning Office has received a request for use of public space submitted by Jennifer Banta, owner of a single-family dwelling located at 67 West Schuyler Street in the First Ward, in order to construct a retaining wall between the sidewalk and the property line. Mr. McGann?
Yep. Mrs. Banta is looking to do a retaining wall in front of her property. It actually kind of piggybacks with the property right next door, which is Mr. Enright, who came before you the last couple of weeks to get use of public space. They're actually sharing the same contractor, and the projects kind of go hand in hand. She was just a little behind getting her paperwork in.
Great. Councilor McBurney, anything to add?
Yeah, I had a chance to look at it with Jen, and it's the same situation that the Enrights had, a very steep bank, so it's hard to maintain. And this will make it a lot easier.
Great. Any questions from the council? Could I have a motion, please? Counselor Gozick, Counselor Walker.
Counselor Hill.
Yes.
Counselor Burridge.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Counselor Gozick.
Yes.
Item number 3, the Zoning and Planning Office has received a request for use of public space submitted by Carol Ballmer, owner of a single-family dwelling located at 60 West Seneca Street in the First Ward, in order to construct a retaining wall between the sidewalk and property line. Mr. McGinn, is this anything you'd like to add, or is someone here to speak to this?
Mr. and Mrs. Ballmer are here if they'd like to speak to this. Basically, they're running a retaining wall along the sidewalk, heading east-west along their property, of which they've invested quite a bit of money. Also, a fence, a wrought iron fence on top of the retaining wall, and then there is a separate section of fence on the west end of the property.
Is there anything you'd like to add?
Thank you. I'm Carol Ballmer. I think that pretty much covers it. There are a couple other factors that the retaining wall will be really replaces an existing wall that was removed 60 years ago when the property was, the older property was demolished. So we're trying to match the older retaining wall that's still on the 5th Street side of the property to make the new retaining wall look like that. There's also wrought iron type fencing on that part of the retaining wall, so we'll be mimicking that and also discouraging people from walking on the wall. And there will be some under cap lighting on the wall also for safety. And then the other piece of fence is to complete the closure of the yard to keep our dog inside. The only other piece, Jeff, was the recapturing some of the green space that used to be in that part of the lot. Will be behind the retaining wall. So when I say behind, I mean to the south of the retaining wall. Right now, it's a gravel area in that area, but we'll be putting a planting bed that's at least a minimum of 3 feet wide inside that, the full length of the retaining wall. And we're also hoping to reclaim a little more of the green space in our driveways because it's fairly wide at the exits. I think that's all. Anything else on? Yep.
Okay. Yep. Great. Councilor McBurney, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, it's very well done, very thorough job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. McGann or Mrs. Ballmer? No? Could I have a motion, please? Councilor Burridge, Councilor Walker.
Counselor Hill.
Yes.
Counselor Burridge.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Counselor Gozick.
Yes.
Item number 4, the Zoning and Planning Office has received a request for use of public space submitted by James Thayer, owner of a single-family dwelling located at 106 East 3rd Street in the 4th Ward, 8 foot by 20 foot, in order to replace and extend deteriorated porch steps between the sidewalk and property line. Mr. McGinn?
Mr. Thayer is part of the ORA this year. He's looking to replace a decaying front stoop and steps with a bigger front porch and steps, expanding a little bit more into public space, and a little more fitting with the neighborhood of the character of the other houses surrounding that area.
Excellent. Councilor Walker, did you have anything?
Yes, thank you. I did drive by the stoop or steps, what he wants to call them. They are deteriorating bad, and he just wants to put a full porch on the front. I
Great.
approve. Thank you.
Any questions from the council? Can I have a motion, please? Councilor Gozick, Councilor Burridge.
Counselor Hill.
Yes.
Counselor Burridge.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Counselor Gozick.
Yes.
And item number 5, the Zoning and Planning Office has received a request for use of public space submitted by Jesse Vannucci, owner of a single-family dwelling located at 115 West 4th Street in the 3rd Ward, in order to construct a new carport and second-story deck between the sidewalk and property line. I remember this already went in front of planning.
Yes, Mr. Vannucci went in front of planning and zoning previously to get what he needed for variances. And as you can see by the drawing, it's a very small amount that he goes on to public space with the carport and second-story deck. It's less than a foot.
Okay. Great. This is in the third ward. I do support this. Young couple, they've purchased a house in the ward. I think it's great that they're investing money in their home, and the plans look great. So, any questions on this? Okay. I have a motion, please. Councilor Burridge, Councilor Walker.
Counselor Hill.
Yes.
Counselor Burridge.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Counselor Gozick.
Yes.
Is there any other business to come before this committee? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Counselor Gozick, Counselor Walker.
Counselor Hill.
Yes.
Counselor Burridge.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Counselor Gozick.
Yes. This time, I'd like to call the Planning and Development Committee to order for July 20th, 2020.
Counselor Walker.
Here.
Counselor Cordino.
Here.
Counselor McBrearty.
Here.
Is there any old business? Seeing none, we'll move on to approve the minutes for June 15th, 2020 committee meeting. Mr. Cordino, Mrs. McBrearty. Please call roll.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Counselor Cordino.
Yes.
Counselor McBrearty.
Yes.
Okay, under communication, Mayor William J. Barlow Jr. proposes local law number 4 of the year 2020, reducing allowable lot coverage in TN1 and TN2 zoning districts from 25% to 12.5%. Mr. Barlow?
Thank you. This is pretty clear what we're trying to do. I would argue that we're not trying to restrict the amount of parking. I would argue that all of this time, 25%, particularly in TN1 and TN2 dense neighborhood zones, have been not restrictive enough, and they've allowed for too much paving as a result of a lot of the paving that you see in our dense and particularly historic neighborhoods. So we're trying to reduce the allowable lot coverage by a little more, well, about half, to 12.5%. Just to put some context around that, 12.5% on a 33 by 100 lot still will allow for about 2 cars, about 12 by 40. So you'll still be able to have 2 cars. All this really does is doesn't allow you to go beyond that, and I would argue that you know, if you have not paved that much of your yard already, there really is no need to anymore. If that need was a true need and really there, you would have done it by now, or the landlord or property owner would have done it by now. What else? The other thing we're doing in this legislation is requiring any property that has a rental permit tied to it, if they go to expand their parking footprint at all, they have to go before the planning board. And then lastly, we're editing the definition of a driveway. A driveway will now mean asphalt, concrete, pavers, or brick, and a gravel driveway or a worn down grass drive will no longer be acceptable.
Very good. Any questions for the mayor?
I support the mayor 100%. I think it's a fantastic idea.
Thank you for your comment. Any more questions?
Just have a comment. I had a chance to talk to Mr. McGann about the effect overall on applying for variances, and it seems very reasonable not to add too much additional, but also it will be a very positive reinforcement of the paving ban that we worked on a couple of years ago.
Very good. City Attorney?
Just a point of procedural order. So this is an amendment to a local law, our zoning ordinance. The resolution, I understand it's not in your packet, but what you would be passing on to the full committee or for the full council next week would be consideration of this amendment, but also establishing a public hearing. Right? So that would occur, I think I just looked at the calendar, August 10th would be the next full committee or council meeting after next week.
Right.
So the resolution for next week will be establishing a public hearing for consideration of local law 4 of 2020.
Very good, thank you. Any more questions, concerns? Could I get a motion, please? Mr. Cordino, Ms. McBrady. Please call
Counselor
the-
Walker?
Yes.
Counselor Cordino?
Yes.
Counselor McBrady?
Yes.
And who will be preparing this resolution?
Go to the city attorneys.
Thank you.
Okay, any more new business? None? So could I go for adjournment, please? Counselor Cordino, Counselor McBrady.
Counselor Walker?
Yes.
Counselor Cordino?
Yes.
Counselor McBrady?
Yes.
Okay, meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Not safe.
Awesome job, Sean. Awesome.